We got a special show lined up for you today, listeners, as we wrap up 2024 and look ahead to the new year. I'm joined by two of my favorite guests, experts in the real estate world. Tracy Valco is the founder and chief visionary officer of Valco Financial with over 25 years of experience in the mortgage and financial industry. She's a trusted source of information and she has her finger on the pulse of the real estate world. Faisal Susiwala is here as well too, recently named as the #1 RE/MAX agent worldwide in terms of sales volume and number of homes sold. He's also the author of the book, The Real Deal, Billion-Dollar Real Estate Broker. Welcome to the two of you.
Oh, thank you so much, Brock.
Thanks for having us on. Thank you.
This is so much fun. We are going to have a great hour of discussion ahead. Listeners, if you'd like more information about the topics discussed on the show today, you can start your journey at tracyvalco.ca. You can call Tracy 519-745-8019 or email her tracy@valcofinancial.ca. If you have a question for Faisal, you can go to homeshack.com. You can also call Faisal directly, 519-624-5555. Email works as well, faisal@homeshack.com. And we are live today. So listeners, feel free to give us a call if you have a question for Tracy or for Faisal. You can reach us here in the studio, 519-570-2545, 570 on your cell or toll free, 1-800-570-5715. So we can jump right in. Tracy, Faisal, we can begin with a look at the current market. A lot of conversation about December rule changes. Tracy, maybe let's start with you and maybe you can give us an explanation about what those changes are and how they're impacting people right now.
Yeah, absolutely. There are so many mortgage rule changes that have happened, I'd say, in the last 6 months. When you look at it historically from the finance side, we haven't seen as many changes from a positive perspective. That's going to help, first-time home buyers, even existing buyers, to be able to alleviate some of the mortgage payment shock with interest rates that have risen over the last few years. And so it's being able to navigate a lot of those changes. Education is key. And so that's why I always recommend to anyone that is looking to buy a home or is an existing house or up for renewal, speak to a mortgage professional so you know where you're going, especially if your mortgage is coming up for renewal in the next 3 years or if you're looking to buy. Some of the changes that have happened, and I'll just highlight a few of them right now because we've got so much content and I want to make sure Faisal gets a lot of time here because I'm excited to have him on with me. But a couple of the key highlights is the reintroduction of the 30-year amortization. That came into place December 15th. And that 30-year amortization is for all first-time home buyers, whether they're buying new builds or resale homes, which is going to help a lot of people from a payment management perspective. I've seen payments adjusted from a 25-year amortization to a 30 from like around $300 to $500, depending on price point. So that's great news. And then from an income perspective, I've seen that adjust where we don't need as high income to qualify. And I've seen that adjusted from $11,000 to $15,000 on a price point. So definitely a good win. The 30-year amortization applies to all buyers if they're buying new builds. And I think that's where the confusion has been because the federal government's announcement on this wasn't very clear from the beginning. And the wording is a little bit, you could misunderstand it, right, from a home buyer perspective. But that is the policy. I think that's going to help a lot of people that are buying, or even if they bought prior to December 14th, like before that change, you can have your mortgage reapproved again at the 30-year amortization if you qualify. So people should keep that in mind. So that's one. The other one is the increase in the cap of purchase price from $1 million to 1.5. Now that you can go up and purchase with less than 20% down, and that helps people in higher price point areas, right? Such as Toronto, Vancouver, even in our market too, right?
Right, for sure.
So those are some of the real changes on that, which is good to know.
Faisal, current housing market, what are we looking at right now? How are things looking in the region?
Well, we've seen a real uptake since that October 23rd interest rate cut. And we were talking pre-show that, people didn't pay attention to interest rate cuts and what the Bank of Canada was doing prior to probably the last year. And now that is such a huge factor in their
Right.
decision-making process. So that pent-up demand, the people that were sitting, waiting on what are we going to do next, they were waiting for that. And the first, 4 or 5 cuts didn't really have the impact I found, just because like, okay, we've seen this before, we've seen the up, we've seen the down, we're not falling for it. We want to see some consistency. We want to see greater cuts. So though that 0.5%, and then the last one was December 11th, I believe,
right. Yep.
that half really put some fire into the market. Those who were sitting on the fence are saying, I better jump in now because we know what happens. Rates go down, prices will go up. We've also seen a trend. I would say conservatively, we're up 6% over August
Okay.
on pricing. And that is a very positive sign for those who had bought a year and a half, 2 years ago,
Yeah.
who have
Yeah.
been waiting to exit. They're seeing some light at the end of the tunnel and coming to the spring. And to your point, Tracy, with this cap of CMHC lifting it to 1.5 million, what we're going to see in our region is where the average prices are $860,000 to $900,000. I will often list a home at say $899,900 and expect to get $1 million for it because we have purposely listed it below what we're expecting to get. In those situations, I'll often get, in fact, I had one 2 weeks ago where I had 7 offers on this property.
Wow.
And what happened was 5 of them stopped at $1 million because they were CMHC
Yeah.
buyers. The others were able to go a little bit higher because they were able to come up with the additional cash.
Right.
Now, when that cap lifts, I think organically we're going to see that baseline rise
Right.
because more people will be able to say, well, I can go up another $30,000 because what is it, 10%?
Yeah, it's about 10%.
So
that's
so
right.
they have to come up with another, $3,000 or $10,000 depending on how much higher they're going up. So we're going to see the impact of that coming
Oh,
in.
for
Of course,
sure.
the amortization is going to help as well.
Yeah. I think down payment's a big deal on that. That's a great point, Faisal, because when you're looking at that price point, like that 1.5, like traditionally before December 15th rule, you had to have 20% down. Well, for a lot of first-time home buyers or any buyer, that's a lot of money, right, to be able to put down. And now you can do it with less. So now, even if you have saved money, you don't have to put all of your funds
Right.
and be financially strapped at the time you buy a home. Now you can put down less than that 20%. It's 500, so it's 5% for the first 500,000 and then 10% for the remainder above. So it could work out to be between that 6 to 10%. But now people can take that extra funds that they've saved and maybe buy furniture or put it into diversified income streams and actually work on other ways to earn money on their money, or have it in their savings account for just expenses on owning a home, right? And I think it's a great opportunity where it's helping people really see a light at the end of the tunnel. The 30-year is a big win. I'm part of the Mortgage Professionals Association, and we've been lobbying with the government for a very long time to bring back that 30-year amortization. So I think it's really going to help spark the housing market next year for spring market.
Do you see that would the federal government ever make the decision to extend a 30-year amortization to current to homes that already exist? Is that a possibility? Is that a step that would make much of a difference?
It's a conversation we're having. We originally lobbied for that. I think it's a baby step one at a time, right? But I think that you can see clearly with this government, they're looking at making massive changes to help home ownership, to help first-time home buyers, to help bring supply into our market that's so desperately needed with the amount of immigration growth that we've had. So I think that you will see some changes in a good way on mortgage rules, as not only are we coming up to a federal election next year too, right?
I was going to say that, right? The economy, and you feel free to both weigh in. I mean, on one hand, the Bank of Canada is going the right direction, but it seems like we're holding our breath when it comes to what's happening in Ottawa. What are your thoughts as we roll into January, February? What do you think is going to be happening?
Well, there are a lot of economic factors that will come in, but I think we're going to see the rates still drive
Okay.
what's going to happen in the real estate end of things. And within the region, there is some, I would say, insulation when it comes to that. We are in an affordable market. We're in a market where we're still very attractive to GTA buyers coming in. There's still a 25 to 30% discount to buy in this region. And what this region offers with schools, transportation, accessibility to highways, etc., is a real draw for people to come into this region. So I can speak from a regional perspective. I think we're in for an uptick in the market. We're going to see a lot more activity. I think we're set up for a very good year coming into 2025.
All right. Tracy, what do you want to weigh in on that one as well?
Yeah, I'm of the opinion of that as well.
Yeah.
I think 2025 will be a stronger real estate market for our region. It's I'm glad to see 2024 go and looking forward to 2025. I think the election. I mean, there's a lot of rhetoric. I think on social media, it's what it is. But I think that. We were talking about this before. I think a lot of people get consumed by it. They have to kind of read between the lines, make sure you're listening to the right people in the room when you are. And then, how is that affecting you? And if it's not, drive forward to make sure, you're looking at your financial picture, your family, your well-being of yourself. And I think I saw a stat out there from Remax that said that there's going to be about a 6% increase, I think, overall in real estate in our region. I think
Yes.
that's right. Yeah. Which is great. Right. And I do agree with Faisal on that. I think that our area, our region is very attractive for a lot of people in the GTA and surroundings. I think that the growth of a lot of entrepreneurship is strong. You can see that in a lot of the communitive working spaces, such as Catalyst Commons.
Yeah.
It's where I have one of my offices, and they're the largest now in Canada, and they are just packed with new businesses coming in, which is exciting to see. It's nice to be in a space like that and see the growth of IT sector and different sectors. And those people want to own a home, right?
Exactly.
And I mean, so I think there's still the abundance of wealth. I think that people just have to look at how to be able to manage price points by looking at some of these mortgage rule changes that are coming into play. Not only what I talked about December 15th, but we have one January 15th, which I'm very excited about, because that's going to help people in existing properties bring in additional income by adding in income suites, laneway homes, or additions onto their properties for long-term rentals. So I think the government's looking at different ways for people to stay in their existing home as well and retrofit them to be able to add in income so that they can offset mortgage payment increases as mortgages are coming up for renewal. But I also think it's a way to do that and then stay in it and potentially then buy another property to either live in or invest as well. So I think we're getting back to those strategies again.
Great. At homeshack.com. So recently, the Bank of Canada gave us all an early Christmas present back on the 11th with another half-point reduction. If we are taking a look at the possibility of what the rate announcements will be heading into 2025, Tracy, any idea what's your gut telling you? What are we going to see happening in the new year?
Well, I do think decreases are going to continue in 2025, so that's a good sign for everyone that's listening right now. I think that's a huge positive. I do think we'll see probably 1 to 1.5% reduction in bank prime. We're going to get bank prime to, I feel, about 3.95%, which is where we were sitting at 2019. I think if we can get interest rates around where we were in 2019, and the market stability where we were in 2019, I think we'll see consistency in the housing market, and we'll see, I think, from the mortgage side, we won't see as many defaults as what we're seeing right now. So that is my forecast. I'm pretty strong opinionated on that because I can see right now overall where the economy is in Canada and where we're struggling. Higher unemployment. I see the mortgage defaults. I see what's happening with our condo market as well, not so much in our region, but like in GTA and Vancouver. So I think that there's going to be a lot of pressure for this government to continue on decreasing bank prime. And I do think on the flip side of that, fixed rates are based on bond yields, and that's based on the US market. So I always talk about that because a lot of people get it confused. They think it's the same as bank prime, like, oh, well, bank prime went down, how come my fixed rate's down?
Right.
It doesn't, they don't correlate. But I do think fixed rates will come down. I think the U.S. market will start to slow down, and they do have their struggles that they're going to go through in 2025. But I think that we'll see that fixed rates will come down as well. But the bank prime rate And a variable rate mortgage is going to be a big driver for me to recommend for a lot of clients next year, because it's going to help them put them in the driver's seat on making better choices on getting into these lower rates when fixed rates do bottom out.
Right.
And that could be into 2025 or into 2026.
And you talked about that before, that maybe if you're getting into a variable rate right now, you just have to, you've got to bide your time a little
Yeah,
bit, right?
you
And
do.
and that's we can make that happening as well too. Faisal, in your mind, what do we expect if we're looking at housing market trends in the region? Or are you seeing a rise? Will we continue to see that rise in home prices as more people get into the market?
Yeah, there's going to be a direct relationship to what happens with the interest rate. So I believe it is January 29th,
Yeah,
the next rate
that's right.
cut.
Yeah.
Hopefully, well, we're expecting a minimum of a 0.25% drop. That's what we're sort of pricing into the market. With that, and with the season of spring just beyond that, we will see an uptick in the market. We always see the real estate market trends increasing as far as prices are concerned, and buyers coming into our region from March through to June. So that's going to be a hot time of the market coming into this year. So there's no question where for every 0.5% drop, I've noticed about a 3% increase in price.
Okay.
So that's the relationship to interest rates and price right now.
When we look locally as well too, Faisal, do you see a continued drive of condo development, or are we looking at still balancing that out with standard homes? What are we looking at happening?
We're seeing almost a saturation of condo development,
Right.
but not just current developments, the past developments that are in effect that are supposed to be closing. And that's where interest rates are going to play a huge part on what happens, because when those condos were purchased, say 2 years ago, the rates were significantly lower than they are today. We need to get those rates down again so those folks qualify and are able to close. If they're not able to close, then those units are going to be in limbo, resold, maybe hits the rental pool. So there's a lot of unknown factors on what will happen. I do find that the condo developments that had happened previously were inflated. Is frankly overpriced future value that builders and developers were hoping to get from their buyers, selling people on future values. And I was always warning people, like, do not ever buy something in future value.
Right.
Look across the street. What's the price per square foot of that condo today?
Yeah.
And if you're paying more than that, then you're overpaying for it. So
Right.
you as a buyer should be the beneficiary of the appreciation that happens in the timeline of 2 years or 1 year that you're waiting for that condo to be built. But paying and believing a realtor or a builder or a developer who's saying, oh, by the time it closes, don't worry, it'll be worth what you're paying for it. Well, that's not true. So really be mindful of that. We have some great projects in the region that are current value, in line with what current values are, and those are successful projects. The ones that are asking future value haven't been selling. So that's,
Right.
I think there's a lot of intelligence in the market now from people learning and understanding that the market will only bear what the values are currently.
Right. I think they've been listening to both of your shows. That's
I
what
hope
it-
so.
right,
Is it,
that's
I hope
what's
so,
happening.
right?
Tracy, if you could reach out to for first-time home buyers right now, in the audience right now, what are going to be their first steps if they're heading into this market in 2025?
Well, I think the first steps are always what I've been saying, time and time again, is making sure that you really sit down with a mortgage professional, the team that's going to be able to help you get to the finish line of buying a home, and really understanding where your financing is at. From a budget perspective, from the income side, a lot of buyers really have a misunderstanding to how they get paid, because people are having multiple income streams.
Right.
It's not just one income source nowadays, and they might be seasonal, they might be an online influencer, and how are you getting paid and how are you managing the bank accounts? It's very unique, I'm finding. I've never really seen that in the last 2 years, what I've been seeing in terms of how people are getting paid through different sources, and paid very well. But how can we position you on a path of financial success? And when you are speaking to a realtor, you really have that solidified direction of how much you qualify for, can you manage on a monthly payment based on today's rate, knowing that rates are coming down, which is great. We're great to see in this environment. We still want to make sure you're manageable on today's rate, because we know rates are always cyclical and they go up and down depending on what's going on. And knowing that we are looking at more of the recommendation of a variable rate mortgage, now we are trending downwards on bank prime, but the economy can ever change. So we want to make sure people can manage payments and have a buffer. And knowing where you're at on that price point is going to help you when you're speaking to your real estate agent. So most real estate agents, like Faisal, I'm sure you do as well, right? You make sure you ask that question.
Right.
Have you
Right.
spoken to a mortgage professional? Let me see your pre-approval. Let me have that conversation so that we're all working together to get you into that home. And that's the biggest thing, right? It's working as a community for you as a home buyer.
It saves some tougher conversations, I would think, down the road. Right?
Yeah, I'm surprised at the number of buyers that are out house shopping with realtors, and really it's the realtors' fault for not making them understand the
Yeah.
process. Get to a mortgage professional, understand what you're qualified for before you start putting in offers conditional on financing without even having spoken to a bank or a banker or a realtor or sorry, a mortgage broker. And that's one of the biggest beefs that I have when I see offers. Have you been to the mortgage company yet?
Yeah.
No, we haven't. Well, then let's not make conditional offers
Right.
and ask for extensions. The other thing with first-time homebuyers especially is, practicing delayed gratification.
Right.
Don't look
Right.
for that forever home, the white picket fence today. Get your foot in the door while there's still an opportunity, while it's still reasonable. And even if you're not ready to move in, I speak to my nephews and kids all the time, say, you know what, you don't need to move out of mom and dad's basement right away.
Right.
Buy something, partner with someone, partner with your parents, partner with your friends, get your foot in the real estate door now,
Right.
rent out that property, and at some point the equity will increase and you'll be able to extract that equity to go and buy your home. So starting young, starting early is always great advice for young people today.
Love it, Tracy. I didn't mean to cut you off before the break, but we were just kind of wrapping up that idea of, what these young folks need to be. They're heading into the first time home buyers, and you wanted to finish off with a thought on it.
No, I was just going to go on to what Faisal was saying is that real estate's a long game. It's not a short one.
Right.
And I think that a lot of people look at what transpired in 2020 and 2021, beginning of 2022, on really, in some aspects, a lot of people won the lottery in terms of their house, right?
Yeah.
Maybe sold and then or bought and then sold at a very high price in a short period of time. Those cycles of the economy and the real estate market don't happen very often. And so I think that for younger people getting into the market, they look at that as, well, we'll be seeing that come, it'll be coming quite quickly. And it's
Right.
not. Like, real estate is a very long game. You have to understand that you're buying a property that you want to build equity in, which you will, but it does take time. And historically, when you look at values, I mean, we're looking at 3 to 4%, annually, that you'll see values increase. Even the forecast for next year at 6%, I mean, that's very good. I mean,
Right.
I think there'll be some balancing on that a bit, but that's still conservative and it's still reasonable and can be manageable for the market to attain. But this 25 to 50% that we saw every year, like, everyone has to take that year out of the equation, especially 2021, and let's reset based on what we've traditionally seen.
Yeah, that was such a blip, right? We can't be dealing with that. If we've got some listeners out there that are gearing up for mortgage renewal in 2025, what's the best advice for them right now?
There's a lot of conversation on mortgage renewals, a lot. I think that we've got, it's going to be, I think, one of the biggest topics for 2025 besides home purchasing. There's 2.2 million mortgages coming up for renewal in the next 12 months in 2025. The government's very aware of the amount of mortgages that are coming up. We have to remember a lot of those are coming from interest rates 5 years ago. And I've had this, and I just, having a lot of conversations with couples right now where they're trying to look at, okay, what am I navigating on my next renewal?
Yeah.
They're coming from interest rates of like 1.5, 1.6. And if they're looking to renew into the beginning of next year, on the fixed rate side, we're looking at low 4%, like 4.2.
Right,
That's quite a big payment shock. It can be like, I've seen differences between like $500 to $700 a month that they'll be managing on their mortgage amounts. So, looking at a strategy of how people can manage if they're coming up for renewal, looking at products such as, I'm going to go back to a variable rate mortgage, because those types of mortgages with a variable, you can convert to a fixed rate as rates come down, with the mortgage professional you deal with, you hope they'll support you and educate you so that they'll tell you when you need to convert to a fixed rate.
Yep.
So as fixed rates bottom out, and traditionally when you look at inflation cycles and when we're in disinflation, which I feel we're in right now, those cycles of fixed rates coming down usually take 12 to 18 months. So if you're in a variable, it'll allow you to fix your mortgage, at any point during your term, without any fees or penalties, as long as you stay with the same lender, but you need to have someone to help you manage that, right? So having these conversations, getting ahead of your renewal, making sure that you're contacting a mortgage professional, even if it's a year out, knowing where you're at with your financing, your credit, your balance, what is life bringing you the next 5 or 10 years? Do we need to relook at your balance, restructure your financing to win? Is a huge thing. And then one thing I wanted to mention is with this 30-year amortization, we can look at restructuring people's mortgages at time of renewal, where if we're increasing their amortization, they're not feeling the payment shock of, that interest rate hike. And we've done that where, we're either keeping their payment very close to what they've got at the time when they even did their mortgage 5 years ago, or even down, just depending on if we're eliminating debt and we get into like debt consolidation of maybe credit cards or unsecured lines of credits as well, encompassing that. So it's a whole conversation. There's going to be a lot of information. We're going to be running a Mastering Your Renewal seminar on January the 22nd. And I'll have information on my website, getting that out on social media, because a lot of people don't know what to do and they feel like they're stifled and they just renew based on the document they get from their bank and not look at options. So I want to make sure people are educated.
Okay, and that's a great piece to touch on, that idea. Some people, it's almost like they just want to set it and forget it, but that's not the best way to go. Faisal, maybe, and there was a bit of discussion about this. Are there clients right now that want to sell or who have to sell? Are people finding it a tough spot to be in right now?
Yeah, and to Tracy's point, many people are getting those renewal notices, and instead of having a conversation with their mortgage broker or their bank, they're calling me saying, I just got my renewal, my rate's going up by 3%, you need to come sell my house.
Right.
And it's at that point, as a realtor, that I have to really look at their situation and suggest to them that, okay, selling your home may not be the right solution for you at this time. Speak to your professional, make sure that you can maybe negotiate, maybe go into a variable, extend your amortization. Let's come up with a solution to get you through this next 6, 8, 12 months until we can see that rate come down and then lock in. But the first sort of knee-jerk reaction that we're seeing is, I just got my renewal notice, there's no way that I'm going to be able to sustain this. The other challenge is if they're switching banks or trying to get a mortgage from another company, there may not be enough equity there for them to do so. So those are all conversations that are so important to have with the mortgage professional, so that they're not making decisions without all of the information. And then again, great point on just don't look at what the bank sent you and tick off the checkbox that you think suits your needs.
Right.
And I think on that point, what's happening, I'm noticing a lot of mortgage renewals. You have to remember, when you're receiving your renewal, you're receiving it from your bank or your financial institution probably 2 to 3 months before your actual maturity date. So it's based on that rate at that time when they actually send it out to you in mail or online, that they, you have portals with some of the banks where you can be able to download your documents. So your rate isn't based on current rate, and we know rates are being reduced, right? So we've had even fixed rates come down, and on the variable discounting become more aggressive. So negotiating that rate to up close to your renewal, but having a mortgage professional do that for you safely. Because why I'm saying that is that if we are looking to move your mortgage from your existing lender, what's happening is, for the new lender to receive your payout statement on your existing mortgage, a lot of times these banks and lenders aren't giving it to the new institution until very close to the closing date. So sometimes we're finding that the closing of your new mortgage might be a couple days after your actual renewal date, and that's okay, but we have to make sure you're in an open mortgage so there's no penalties. Typically, when you transfer a mortgage to another institution, the new institution should be covering all fees for you, so you have no cost for you. But really understanding the nuances of a renewal, because there's so many little tricks that you have to know to be able to navigate it. And I find that people are so stricken when they receive their renewal and panic that they're thinking, oh, I'm just offered a 4-year or a 5-year and I'm not given the other terms, I must not qualify, so I should just take it.
Right.
They shouldn't be doing that. They should be speaking to a mortgage professional.
And we keep hearing more and more stories about mortgage default. Is that coming across your desk? And if so, it's got to be a tough conversation to be having with people.
It is a tough conversation. We're seeing a lot more of that right now. I think, we've been in an environment of higher interest rates and inflation, cost of living. We're seeing unemployment, obviously, increase this year as well. So it's just inevitable to start seeing mortgage default. And then you've got the abundance of renewals coming up, right? That payment shock. So it's a really big conversation. I think that what people need to do, first and foremost, is one thing is to know you're not alone.
Right.
Because there is a lot of people right now that are struggling financially to meet their obligations on their mortgages. And know that there's options out there. There's a lot of equity that people have built up in their homes over the last 5 years that's untapped. And you may not know how much you have there to be able to help where we can look at options of renegotiating your mortgage and being able to get your mortgage payments caught up. What I have noticed is that typically the banks and lenders and financial institutions will start that foreclosure process after 3 months of being behind on your payment.
Right.
But what I'm seeing over the last 45 days, it's less than 3 months that they're starting, and it's around 2.
Okay.
So it's important if you feel like you're going to even be behind the first month, speak to a mortgage professional. Know you're not alone. There's lots of options and strategies out there. There's teams that will be behind you to help you navigate this. That's the thing, but you got to ask for help for it.
And I was going to lean into that as well, too, with you, Faisal. I mean, you've been at this for a while. Did you ever think when you started off that you'd become a counselor for a lot of people when it came to, the decisions that they had to make on a daily basis?
It's interesting. When I first started in the business back in 1988, the market was great. 1989, it was great. And then 90, we started hitting this recession, which lasted 10 years. So it's kind of, take back to those times and the conversations we were having back then. Fortunately, I have more experience at it now, and I'm saying to people, to Tracy's point, not to wait till the last minute. We recently had a situation where someone was calling me and they had been given final notice that they've got a week before the takeover happens from the bank. Fortunately, we were able to come up with a solution for them and help them keep their house, but the fees were just enormous. By the time we looked at the penalties, the legal fees, and all that, there's over $25,000 in accumulated fees that they would have avoided had they spoken to a professional ahead of time and not waited till the last minute. So, don't be embarrassed. Talk to someone that knows and can help you and come up with a solution for you.
Perfect. If you both pop your headphones on right now, we've got a caller in. We've got a question. Afif, thanks so much for giving us some of your time today. Afif, what's your question today? Okay. Okay, so line of credit is $250,000, mortgage is at about $20,000. What, and are you thinking you want to know what the best thing is to do at this point? I got you. Okay. I'm gonna hand this over. Maybe Tracy, you want to jump in on this. So mortgage is at about $20,000 left on the house, but line of credit's at about $250,000. And Afif, again, thanks so much for calling in, and let's get an answer for you here.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think at this point, when looking at that, are you having difficulty in terms of managing that monthly payment on it?
And he's dropped off again, but maybe let's imagine that he is having a difficult time with those things.
Yeah, no problem. I think that what's happening with a lot of people on their lines of credit is because, again, bank prime is still, it's come down 1.75% this year, but it's still high for people to manage that. And you have to remember that with lines of credit, typically minimum payments are just covering interest, right? It's not really
Right.
paying down principal. So what I'm look at with people, if they've got the equity, which he probably will have in this home, is
Yep.
consolidating that, right?
Okay.
Putting it into one mortgage, extending the amortization so we can help manage lower that monthly payment for him, give him some more cash flow in his budget. And then, once he's got some relief, really looking at some strategies on his budget is, what income is coming in, what other expenses can we offset and consolidate for him into that new mortgage for him, so that we could look at ways of even maybe down the road paying that down faster by increasing payments, once we've got him some payment relief, right? So just overall restructuring that mortgage, right? And his budget, his lifestyle, like with what he's got on that line of credit, what's he got on his mortgage, how can we consolidate everything into one payment for him?
There you go, Afif. And again, thanks for calling in. That idea of consolidating is going to be the way to go. And you can reach out to Tracy after the show. Looking at, if we take a look at people that might be making some moves in the new year, and I know that Faisal, we've often said, no one's ever thought, or no one's ever said, I'm sure glad I didn't buy that house 5 years ago. Is there a time when you would still say to people, hey, let's just wait a little bit here, let's wait till the dust settles? Where are people at as we're heading into 2025?
On the buying side, I'm saying don't wait.
Okay, good to know.
Now on the selling side, I'm saying wait.
All right.
Okay, which speaks to where the values are at.
Right.
So there is still a lot of value in purchasing today. You can enjoy the appreciation 5-6% over the next year, which is a significant growth in your investment. From a seller's perspective, obviously it's not quite the seller's market today, but if you're waiting until February and March, I believe they will enjoy the lower interest rates, which will increase their prices. They'll have a greater audience coming in from the GTA. We are still attracting that market, and those folks typically don't like to move here in the winter months.
Right. And I would think maybe a small thing, but for some people, even just to travel to come here in the wintertime when it's a little dicey, and if we're heading into nicer weather, it makes life a little bit easier for them to get here. That's important for people to keep in mind as well too. If we are looking at people that are starting to prep their finances. We've talked about this in the other section, but making sure they've got all their paperwork lined up, they're ready to go, and you're happy to have a conversation with them once you might still send them off with a little bit more homework to do, but you want to make sure that they've done some work before they walk in the door.
Yeah, and I think to what Faisal said, I think we're going to have a busier spring market this year than we did. Into 2025 than we did this year. And I think with the lack of inventory out there, people should be prepared and understand their financing. With the rule changes, it will allow a lot more people to have opportunity that traditionally didn't have or might have been sitting on the sidelines. Re-looking at your pre-approval if you already have been pre-approved. Because you may actually be able to increase your price point to get you into the space that you need to get into. So being prepared, making sure where you are, understanding the rule changes on a high level, having the team behind you to help you from the real estate and from the mortgage side, I think is really important going into the new year, because with a busier spring market brings the opportunity of potentially having where there's offers without any conditions of financing. We might get back into that again to some aspects. I think we might see a little bit of that because we don't have the supply enough for the amount of demand of what we need for the population growth that we've had specifically in this community as well.
Speaking of a busy spring, we know, Tracy, that you've got a few irons in the fire right now. What's coming up for you in the first part of 2025?
Oh my goodness, we had a busy couple of months. So January 22nd is our renewal mastery seminar, and that's going to how to navigate your renewal. If you are coming up for renewal, even in the next 3 years, I'd like to see you there so we can really sit down and show you all the changes, where you're at, how to navigate best practices on your renewal, and making sure that you've got a good understanding of your financing and budget. So that's from 6 to 8 at Catalyst Commons, 137 Glasgow Street, and that's on my website. The other event is Family Day Skates, so we're bringing that back again, which is great. That'll be our 10th one since I've been in the industry. And we are having that at Sports World, and that's on Family Day from 10:30 to 12:30. That's free, so we'll have that on our website too. You can register for that. And then I'm super excited for our second Mental Health Stronger Together dinner fundraiser. And that's with the Care Never Stops Foundation at Grand River Hospital. That now is combined with St. Mary's, and that's going to be at the beautiful venue, the Tapestry Hall.
Oh, lovely.
We're expecting, fingers crossed, to get 500 people in attendance, and that will be starting at 6 p.m. And then onwards, we'll have live entertainment, we'll have silent auction. If you want to, be able to purchase a table, corporate table, we're going to have all that. The website will be on, the link for that will be on my website. We'll have so much information on that, and I'm looking forward to seeing Faisal there and being a part of that as well.
Looking forward to
Yeah.
it.
That's awesome. And I know, Faisal, if people want to see you, it's usually on YouTube. You seem to be, every week there's new content out there. What are you up to these days?
Yeah, just keeping people informed, doing a little bit of coaching on the side there as well in my free time, and yeah, it's great. We're looking forward to a very busy spring market. Just selling lots of homes. That's
Yeah.
what we're looking forward to.
Well, and I want to thank both of you for coming on the show today. It's been a great way to wrap up 2024.